Hi friends, in previous videos we discussed about how to add the data into the JSON server. In this videos we are going to discuss about how to retrieve those values which we added into the JSON server. Let's proceed into the implementation part. So here you see, I'm going to create one more component. Okay, so I'm just going to create one more component that is ngGC and then component name is going to be a view component. I'm going to create this component under the component folder. So I'm putting component slash. So we need to give the exact same name component. Okay, so then that should be followed by view component. Done. So now you see it's going to create one more component that is a view component under the component folder. Here you see we're having one more component which is view component. I'm just deleting this spec.tss which is not required. Okay, so now I'm going to write the coding in the HTML file. Initially, I'm just going to write a routing path for this. Okay, so for that, I'm moving to this app.router.modules.css. Here inside this, I'm just going to give the path which is going to be view. When the user is going to give the view on the URL endpoint, it need to be called this view component. Okay, so the component name which is called as view component. I'm just copying this component name. I'm going to paste it on here. Okay, done. So when the first we need to import it. Okay, so when the user is going to give slash view on the URL endpoint, it need to call this. Okay, so here you see for that I'm moving to this endpoint. Here instead of add, I'm just going to give view and press enter. Now you see we don't get any endpoint. We need to save all. Okay, so now I'm going to give slash view. It's not throwing. Okay, so why? Because okay, so we don't have any content in the view component HTML file. Here I'm just going to write some content view component called. Okay, so I'm just typing it. Now you see when the user is going to give view on the URL endpoint, the view component is going to be displayed on here. So now what I'm going to write, okay, so instead of hard code the URL endpoint in the address bar, I'm going to write endpoint in the app.router.html file. I'm just putting some R symbol. Okay, so here I'm going to write the anchor tag. Okay, so that is router link. Okay, so when the user is going to give view on the endpoint, when the user is going to click this anchor tag, it is going to be navigate to the router file and it's going to check which component need to be get called. Okay, so here you see add student, it is going to display this controls and view student, it is going to be display the view component text. Okay, so now what we are going to do before we are going to make any networking call from the JSON server, first we are going to display some uh, content. Okay, so that is table tag for displaying the content which is present on the JSON server. Okay, so I'm just going to use table. Inside this, I'm just going to write tr. So inside this tr, I'm just going to mention th. Okay, so here I'm going to write id, and then that should be followed by name and then date of birth. Name and then date of birth. Name and date of birth. Okay, so here we are going to display the information, right? tr. Okay, so here I'm going to give some dummy data now. Okay, so under this tr, we having the td tag. Okay, so I'm going to give some dummy data for checking the output. Okay, so now name is going to be Vinod Kumar Silverson. So then date of birth. So I'm just going to give some values. Okay, so here you see we got this output, but it is not looking good, right? So I'm just going to write the CSS for this table tag. So table. Okay, so first I'm going to give border collapse is going to be border hyphen collapse is going to be collapse. Okay, so here I'm going to mention the border for this. Border is going to be 0.5 pixels and the type is going to be groove, and then color is going to be some color. One, two, three. Okay, so now you see we got it. Okay, so now we are going to mention the width for this. So width, which is going to be 100 percentage. So now we are going to check is occupying the enter space. So now what we are going to do? So we are going to write for the both TH and in TD. So both of them is comes under the TR. So I'm going to write TR, TH, comma, TR, TD. Okay. So here I'm going to mention border, which is going to be same as this. Okay. So mention refer. Now you see we got the border, but we need some space from the top. Okay. So I'm just going to mention top from top. I'm just going to give 16 pixels. Okay, so now you see we got some space. Okay, so add students, view students. Okay, so now instead of displaying the hard-coded values, we are going to display the values which is present on the JSON server. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write the endpoint in the services file. Okay, so here I'm moving to the services file. I'm going to write an endpoint. Okay, so here first, I'm going to write the method. Okay, so view student. Okay, so inside this, I'm not going to receive any argument because it is going to display the entire data. Okay, so for that, I'm just going to use the observable. Okay, so which is going to be any type. It is going to be written any type here inside this. Okay, so it is going to return this dot HTTP. For making the HTTP call, which object we are going to call, we need to use HTTP call. Okay, so then I'm going to make get call, right? Okay, so which operation? It is a get operation. Okay, so here I'm just going to make a call to this endpoint. The endpoint, what is the endpoint? This is the endpoint. Here we are mentioning this endpoint in the services file. Okay, so what is the endpoint? Variable name. Okay, so there is API endpoint. Okay, so here this dot API endpoint. Okay, so now we see created the networking call in the services file. Now what we are going to do? Now we are going to make a networking call from the component. Okay, so and we are going to display the informations on here. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create two variables, that is observable variables. Okay, so in case if you don't about the observable, okay, so please refer the observable videos which is there in the my playlist. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create two observable variables. Okay, so one is for getting the values from the JSON server, it is going to hold. Another one is for, so in case if I'm going to perform any sorting operations on filtering operations, so we are going to store the final result on the variables. That values I'm going to display it on the HTML file. Okay, so listen. So let's see how I'm going to implement. Okay, so in case we not understand, just listen. Okay, so you can understand right now. Okay, so after the implementation. Okay, so data. So what data type? And this is observable, right? Okay, so that we are going to put dollar symbol after this variable. Okay, so observable. Okay, so what data it is going to return? It is going to return what data? Student. That is the data is going to be belongs to the student model, right? Okay, so student model. Okay, it is going to return in array of format. Okay, so then equal to of. Okay, so here I'm just going to import both the student as well as of. Okay, so student as well as of. Now you see, I'm just going to create one more values. Okay, so that is final final data. Okay, so it is for displaying the informations on the HTML file after performing the sorting or filtration operations. Okay, so here I'm just going to make this one is going to be observable type. Okay, so it is also going to hold the student entity. Okay, so array of and then equal to of. So done. Okay, so now you see when this particular component is get loaded, okay, so when this particular component is get loaded, it need to display all the values which is present on the JSON server. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to call the JSON, I'm going to call the services file which is present on the service class. Okay, so before that, I'm going to implement ng on in it. Okay, so when this particular component is get initiated, at the time we are going to make a call. Okay, so implement. Okay, so here you see, I'm copying it and pasting over here. Okay, so when this particular component is get loaded, we need to make a call. Okay, so that what I'm going to do, I'm going to create separate method. Okay, so that is uh, get data method. Okay, so this method is going to make a call. Okay, so this method is going to be make a call. So here when this particular component is get loaded, I'm going to make a call to this particular method, this dot get data, so that this method is going to perform the networking call. Okay, so here I'm going to store the data into this data observable variables. Okay, so here data observable variables equal to, okay, so this dot ss. Okay, so sorry, this dot we need to make a call to this networking call, right? Okay, so before that we need to inject this services class into this class by using the constructor and then private ss colon networking call services. Inside this, I'm just going to import this package network call services. So ss dot view all students. Okay, so this method is going to return the values. Why? Because it's going to throw an error because we need to call by using this keyword, this dot data students. Okay, so it is going to store the data which is going to be written by view students. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to store the data into this final result values. Okay, so final data variables. That is final data is going to be observable. Okay, so that is so that I need to put dollar symbol. This dot final data students. Here I'm going to store the data which is going to be written by this method view data students. Okay, so here now you see this final data is holding the values, right? Now we are going to call, now we are going to use the variables on the HTML file. Okay, so for that what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use star ng for, okay, so ng for equal to, so then let, okay, so then s of final data. Okay, so now you see here we are not going to call by subscriber method, we are going to call by using async. Okay, so now you see it is going to convert the object into the asynchronous format networking call. Okay, so it is automatically called the subscribe. Okay, so instead of s, I'm just going to put interpolation operator, so s dot id. Okay, so then s dot username. Okay, so then s dot date of birth. So s dot date of birth. Now you see we pull all the data from the JSON server. Now we are going to check the result. Now you see whatever the values which is present on the JSON server, now we got it on here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to add one more data. Okay. So Chitra Vinod Kumar and then date of birth. I'm just going to give some values. Okay. So I'm just press enter. Here you see the data is inserted successfully. Now I'm moving to this view data. So now you see the data is displaying on the view component. Let's see how so what I written on this particular operations. Okay, so here you see for the retrieval operations, I am created one component that is a view component. Okay, so and then services, I am created one method which is called as a view student. Okay, so it is going to be written the values that is which is present, which is written by this endpoint. Okay, so what the endpoint it is going to return when it is localhost colon 3000 students. So it is going to return the values which is present on the JSON server. Okay, so here you see that these are the values which is present on the JSON server, it is returning. Okay, so now we need to make a call to this view student. So for that, what I'm going to do, okay, so I'm just going to create two variables. One is for data, another one is for the final data. Okay, so why I created two variables on here? One is to the values which is written by the services call. Okay, so then another is for so when I'm going to perform some data manipulations, okay, so data manipulations, and then I'm going to display those information. Okay, so that I'm creating two variables on here. One is for the values which is written by the services class. One is for when I would like to perform any sorting operations. Finally, I'm going to store those values on the final data variable. Here, both the variable is going to be observable data type. So we need to make a call to the services class so that I'm going to inject the services class in the constructor. Okay, so that S colon network call services. So now we need to make a call when this particular component is get loaded. Here you see when this particular component is get loaded. Okay, so it is displaying all the data which is present on the JSON server. So I'm just going to call when the ng on init is get initiated. Okay, so when this ng on init is going to be get initiated when the component is loaded. At the time, I'm going to call the get data method. So this get data method is going to be get called. Okay, so here inside this what I written. Okay, so we are going to call the method which is written on the services class, that is view data. It is returning the entire data into the data dollar. Okay, so then we are going to store the data on the final data dollar symbol, that is the observable variable. Okay, so this is the final values which is present on the final data. Okay, so now I am going to use the final data variable on here. Okay, so star ng for I'm just going to use the directory ng for directives to pull all the data which is present on the final data. So for each iteration it is going to be pass one data to this inside. Okay, so I'm just displaying the each student name one by one. Okay, so that finally we are getting this output like this. Hope you understand how to retrieve the values from the JSON server. If you like this video, please share this video with your friends. Please click the subscribe button and bell button. Thank you.